So I'm so excited to be speaking with Amanda Miliner today. She's definitely someone who inspires me and has empowered me before. So it's really awesome to be able to talk to her. She's a former Miss Georgia America and a former Miss Georgia USA. She was also Georgia's Teacher of the Year. So she's just an incredible woman and very inspiring. And I'm really excited to be able to talk with you today.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So I've been starting these by kind of getting some background. So tell everybody where you grew up, what's your family like?
Okay. I grew up kind of all over. I'm a military brat. So it was just my mother and I since I was about 8. And then she married my stepfather, but he was also military. So I was born in Missouri, and then we've lived in Florida, Germany, Wisconsin, other little places in between, and then Georgia. So moved around a bit, and Georgia is really what I consider home. I've been here since middle school. It was the end of 5th grade and then middle and high school, which is kind of unheard of. But my mother retired in Georgia. And so she was the one that usually caused us to move because she worked for the 5th Mob, and they are the ones that usually have to move and then have to go on a lot of deployments. And so I was able to go to college and everything here. And then my sister, she had a complete opposite upbringing because she was born in Georgia and literally has never left. So we have the polar opposites of upbringings. And she had a nuclear family, having both of my parents her whole life. So we kind of, different backgrounds, but it's all good. So that's me.
Crazy. I was also born in Missouri.
Ah, where were you born in Missouri?
Columbia.
Okay. I was born on Whiteman's Air Force Base. So.
Oh, okay. But how much younger than you is your sister? What's the age difference?
11 years.
Wow. So it's a big
Yeah.
gap. But also a unique thing about your family is that you are biracial, growing up with a white parent and a white sister. So that's an extremely unique experience, one that I can relate to a bit. What was that like for you? And did you ever struggle with feeling like you belonged?
Absolutely. I lived in Florida when I had the hardest time was Georgia, but in Florida I was so dark because you're always outside. And that's when my mother met my stepfather. And my mom is blonde hair, blue eyes, very Caucasian, pointy nose, little lips. We're just polar opposites in that respect, but our personalities are very similar. And then my stepfather, he is your kin Barbie, he's blonde and, literally it's those two. And then they have my sister who's just another blonde hair, blue eyed child. So it was hard when I moved to Georgia because everyone was so fixated with what are you? And coming from a military background, we don't usually ask those questions. I mean, it's such a melting pot and you're so used to just moving around with different people. You don't really even think about it. Honestly, I think it's because as military people, you kind of become a family, regardless what you look like. You kind of all become each other's family. So you don't really ask that. So when I came to Georgia, it was so new for me. And I remember going to my mom saying, what am I? What? And she would get so offended. And she would say, you're German, English, Irish, Bohemian, and Czechoslovakian, which means white. So I was like, okay, well, that takes care of that bracket. What's the other part that everyone's looking at? And so my biological father is from Guam. And I met him for the first time when I was 18. And that's where I get this look from. And so when I was able to talk to him for the first time, I was 14 on the phone. And when he was able to give me just a little background, I remember feeling so much closure of just, okay, I get it. Now I kind of know why I look like this. And I have 2 brothers from him, and we look just alike. So our baby pictures are almost identical, which is kind of bizarre because no one ever really looks like me. They'll think, are you Asian? Are you Hispanic? Are you this? They always ask. And so it was hard growing up to kind of figure out, who do I hang with? Where do I fit? But it was really good for me though, because you have to kind of get over that hump. And I think everyone kind of struggles with identity. It doesn't necessarily have to be physical. It could even be the way you think or the things you like or what you believe in. So I think identity is something everyone struggles with. And that was just kind of one of the things I had to figure out for myself and embrace because I didn't like the way I looked. It took me a while to appreciate my exterior. And I think that's why I did better in pageants because at that point I had figured out who I was. I had went through all those hurdles. So I was able to verbalize it more clearly.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And it's an interesting experience for sure. And it toughens your skin, I think. So speaking of your amazing mom, she was a single mom for a good part of your childhood. And because she was in the military, like you said, she was often deployed and she was away a lot. So you spent a lot of time alone. What did you learn from that time, and what did you gain from that independence?
You know, the one thing you learn is how to not be a burden, because you can't be. When people are nice enough to open their home to keep you for a week or a month or a couple months, you kind of have to just fit in. And so I kind of learned how to be somewhat invisible, if you will, because if I'm a burden, then I'm a burden on my mother, and then it comes back on me. So the hardest time is when I had to live in Korea for a year. My mother and her and her husband, my stepfather, they both had to go to Korea for a year. And so I lived with my aunt and uncle that I hadn't seen in like 5 years. And it was a very hard year. My uncle at that time just struggled with his own demons, and it was a very hard year. And I remember when she came back, she was pregnant. So I'm like, seriously, you left me with this man, like you went with my stepfather, and then you come back with a whole new family. I was so hurt.
Wow.
And just selfish. You know, I mean, that's how 11-year-olds think. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot through the process of having to be independent. And my mother, even though she was gone a lot because of the military, she was very present. So back then we didn't have texting. We didn't have email. That would have been amazing. Or even cell phones. You know, my mother would call me on this crazy like landline or whatever the phone was. And it sounds like she's a million miles away, which she was. And she would just call whenever she could. And it was very hard to find that time. So my mother, knowing that that's how we communicate, she recorded herself making stories for me on cassette tapes. Those are things that you use as well that you might not be familiar with. But on a cassette tape, she would record herself telling me stories. And so I remember I played those all the time. And that really helped me get through it, which is probably why I love reading to this day. And I love storytelling. And I enjoy doing the voices and all that, because my mother, even though she wasn't there a lot, she was there, and it was there through stories. So
that's amazing. Cassette tapes, they're like clear.
I'll have to bring one for you if I can find one somewhere. I know, right?
So in the midst of all of this travel, I mean, I know you said you ended up in Georgia, but how did you get involved in pageants? How did you start doing that?
Yeah, so never had heard of pageants at all growing up. That wasn't a thing I had ever heard of. Come to Georgia, and I think I was in middle school, like in 8th grade, when I first heard about it. And a friend of mine through dance was like, let's do it together. So we did a couple, I remember, and the very first pageant I didn't place at all. Okay. Like didn't even place. And so it's so funny looking back, because I was so excited, you know, I was in my pretty gown. And, you know, when you write an application for a pageant, you're very honest, but there's certain things you write and certain things you don't write. You just kind of learn the unspoken language, right? Well, I didn't know back then when they said hobbies, I didn't know they didn't really want to know my for real hobbies, because I was like talking on the phone, going to the mall, you know, it was terrible, right? And then you have a friend of mine, her name's Jennison, I always pick because she had this beautiful yellow dress that I swear was just like, when she walked out, it was like everything stopped and was like, oh, this yellow dress, right? And then her application's like, Jennison's hobbies are going to the animal shelter and helping feed every puppy so they're not hungry. And then you heard mine was like talking on the phone. I mean, it was terrible. So I didn't place. And there was only like, literally, there was like maybe 5 girls in the pageant. And so it was a first run, and it was a winner, first, second, third, fourth runner up. So there was 7 people, because only 2 of us didn't place. How crazy. And so I did a couple more. I did win a couple, but then I stopped. I was done. I was like, I got that. That was fun. But my senior year of high school, one of my teachers was like, Amanda, have you thought about doing our high school pageant? And I was like, not so much. I mean, I played basketball, and I was busy with school, and then I did track. So I was a pretty busy student. And she's like, you should think about it, because we offer scholarship money. And so I was like, what? You know, what we talking? Let's talk about this now. So when they told me how, you know, and it wasn't a bunch, but it's still scholarship. And I knew I had to pay my own way through school. I did that, won that. And then someone contacted me about the Miss America system and doing preliminaries. And back then, preliminaries, you didn't pay to do them. You didn't have to pay like a sponsor fee or anything. We didn't have the partnership with CMN. So you literally, every time you entered, if you placed, you would make money every time. And then you wear the same clothes. And then if you finally win, you make that money as well. So I did very well. Doing pageants for me was able to pay for my undergrad and for my master's degree, which is a huge blessing. And I had the Hope scholarships that paid for tuition, but still I had to take out loans for like room and board. That took care of all of that.
Wow. And just talking about the actual competition itself, you were competing against a largely white population of contestants. Same for me too. Did you ever feel othered? Was that ever something that you noticed, or?
I don't know if I really thought about it, to be honest. But the year before I won Miss Georgia, Monica Pong won. And I think she was the first Asian American to win Miss Georgia. And I may have made that up, but I feel like she was the first. And so I'm kind of your islander. So I think when Monica competed, and then there were so many great girls in top 5 that competed that were of some type of color. I remember Kristen and some other girls. So I don't think I ever noticed so much about color.
That's good. Yeah, no, I was looking back at the program book from when I competed in teen, and I'd never noticed before, but I was the only person of color out of the 45 of us who competed. And I'm pretty sure like, that's not just black, that's like any kind of color. And I remember when I was competing, I didn't really notice it because I was so used to that. But after like living in Washington Heights in New York and having that be such a diverse area, going back and looking at that program book, I was like, wow, it was shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so as Miss Georgia America and Miss Georgia USA, you held 2 titles that have always been a symbol of beauty and feminine grace. What did you learn about body image and self-acceptance from having those titles?
Well, I think comparison is hard. So one thing I learned is you just can't compare. So the way that you look in something may not be the way that someone else looks in it. And so you have to be very conscientious of your choices. So whereas I may love this dress on someone or love this swimsuit or whatever it is, if it doesn't fit my body type, I can't wear it. And so I was very good about choosing things that looked right on me. And I think that helps me to appreciate my figure and all those things, because you can always find flaws. The skinniest people, the large people, any people with perfect bodies can still find flaws within themselves. And so that's why it's important to figure out how your body is and what looks right on it, and then what you feel good in. And so I was good about that. And then in my day, it was just really about, when you did swimsuit, for example, it was about having definition and being in shape. You would not place well if you were just skinny. They literally were told to look for the definition that shows that they make healthy choices. And so I think that was always a good approach towards swimsuit, because I enjoyed swimsuit, but I did work hard to get that definition, because I naturally had a fast metabolism growing up, but that wasn't enough. I mean, we had to work to create definition. Some girls that are thinner actually have a harder time creating muscle mass, whereas other girls may not. So that was something to learning how to create that, how to create those lines that you want. But, I enjoyed it. I love evening gowns. I love them. And so it was always fun to find it. And the funny part is when you try them on and you come out for like your board and your parents and you just love it. And you're like, this is it. And they're like, oh no, that color, and it's funny how we don't notice what looks good and what doesn't. Like, I know yellow is not my color. I look sick for some reason on stage. I just don't look well. I don't look like I'm doing okay. Yeah, I know. Well, you look fine, but I know. So that's one thing I learned too. Like, you learn what looks well and it looks good on you and what you feel good in, and you go from there.
Yeah. So what made you, like, stepping away from pageants a bit, what made you want to become an educator?
So I never wanted to be a teacher growing up. I never even thought about it. I was going to college. I was majoring in psychology, but I was thinking about going to law school. And that was more of where my trajectory was going. And then when I was in college, I was a mentor with Big Brothers Big Sisters. And so as a mentor, I went in every week and I saw my little mentee in the program and her teacher, because I would go in and do whatever she wanted. And I just remember her teacher was amazing. I was literally so excited for these lessons. And I would go in there and play with my little, her name is Afton. We would hang out. She was in 3rd grade. And I just loved it. It's so much fun. And so I remember praying about it. Like, is this what I'm supposed to do? Because I was really not wanting to go that route, because we all know teachers have a hard time and don't get paid anything, but I loved it. So I changed my major. And what's funny is it was like butter. It was so easy and enjoyable. I mean, the work was hard, but it was so fun. I ended up getting like nominated for different awards for teaching in college. And who would have known, who would have thought? And then when I student taught, which is how things come full circle. When I student taught, the teacher that I watched with my mentee was my student teacher, my advisor. So I actually got to work with her when I was a student teacher.
Wow.
She's actually a very good friend of mine today. She actually came to Miss America and saw me compete. She came to my wedding. I mean, it's crazy how life works out. And I can't imagine not being a teacher. So yeah, I probably could have been a lawyer, and who knows if I would have done well or not. But teaching is just, it's just what I love. Like right now, even though I'm an administrator, you're still teaching. I am able to right now do these remediation lessons during this COVID-19 time. Our teachers are so inundated with everything that we've taken over some of the remediation, and I love it. I love it so much. It's so fun to just talk with the kids and work with them and teach. And, it's just, it's truly a blessing that fell in my lap, and I'm so glad it did.
Well, will you talk about your experience as Georgia's Teacher of the Year? I mean, what was that like?
Now that was amazing. We have thousands of teachers in the state of Georgia. I want to say it's like 80,000 teachers or something. And then to win Teacher of the Year for your school is a huge honor, because these are your peers. Like they know what you do day in and day out. So when I was nominated as Teacher of the Year, I was just so taken aback and humbled by that. And then to win for my county, there's about 2,500 or so teachers in my county, prestigious teachers. I mean, this is this county I went to school in, so I know how good they are. Honored to do that. And then going to state, like you almost think there's no way, but hey, I'll do what I can. I'll fill out the application. I'll send in my little video, and, I'll go do the interview. And then we had to do a speech too. When you got to top 10, you have to do a speech. And the hardest thing for me is when you won Teacher of the Year, you had to take a year sabbatical and serve as Teacher of the Year, kind of like as Miss Georgia. You take a year and you travel around, you speak everywhere. Well, my daughter was 4 months at the time. So like I was still nursing and stuff. So I mean, it was just a crazy time of life. And I remember going to appearances to speak, taking my like pump with me. And I'm like, hi. And I'd say, before I speak, do you have like a bathroom or somewhere I could go? And it was just, that was my life, and it's funny to look back because it's so crazy when it happens. And I just remember meeting so many influential people, legislators and educational true movers and shakers that were making these decisions and wanting to know what you thought, being someone on the front doing these things. And I just appreciated that opportunity. And I think all teachers kind of need that. They need to be able to be heard and have a voice. And that's why I always try to encourage teachers to get involved and just let your voice be heard of whatever you're needing. And so it was a wonderful experience that year. And I'm still able to keep, help out. I still help out with our conferences and our award ceremonies and all that. So it's good to be involved.
Well, as an educator, you've been a mentor to many young ladies, and you still are. Unfortunately, research shows that only 21% of girls actually believe that they have the qualities it takes to make a good leader. I think that's pretty shocking. How do you encourage young women to be confident in their abilities, and how are you empowering young women to change the statistics?
I think the first thing I do is I try to help people figure out what they're good at or what they want to lead. So like everyone can't lead everyone and everything. You have to kind of find your niche of what you're passionate about or what you believe in. And I think once you're truly passionate about something, or once you see something that you're like, I need to make a change, you'll figure out how to lead. And sometimes you lead with others or you lead by yourself. But I think it's when you force it and people say, for example, do you want to be an officer or do you want to take this role? If you're not passionate about it, it's going to be scary. Because no, I don't want to be in charge of everyone, or I don't want to take over all the money. It's scary to have that leadership role, but there's so many different leadership roles that people can take that are almost prerequisites as well. So I feel like if a girl is intimidated or a young woman is intimidated, maybe she's intimidated to, have everyone looking at her to make a wrong decision. I would just say start small and figure out what leadership skills you have, or figure out what you want to lead, and then go from there. You know, and if you don't want to lead, don't, just follow. And eventually you're probably going to end up leading anyhow, because people who follow well become very good leaders. You know, they're the best leaders because you listen. So I think I would more so want to figure out what they're passionate about, and then hopefully it'll morph them into receiving, I don't know, that validation that you know what you're talking about. You can do this. We need you to lead us. We need your voice. And then they can do it.
Absolutely. And I think it's important for them to even have someone who is hearing them and hearing what they want to do, because not every girl, unfortunately, has that at home. So I know that as an educator, especially when you are working in the classroom, like, you have this incredible opportunity to influence the lives of these children. And sometimes you're the only person that's really hearing them all day. And that's really sad, but it's just what an amazing responsibility to have.
Yeah.
So speaking of being a mentor, you are a mom to an amazing little girl named Avery. And this is another kind of statistic. Studies show that children with mothers who are overly concerned with their weight and outward appearance are at an increased risk of modeling those unhealthy attitudes and behaviors. And then on the flip side of that, you know, girls who are raised by mothers who make a point to show their body confidence tend to model those behaviors as well. How are you raising your daughter to have a positive body image and to love herself? And what advice would you give to other moms on raising their confident girls?
To be honest, she's my child. So she has no problem right now, unfortunately. She's like my mini-me. She is like, woo, we got to bring her down about 30 notches. So she don't have a problem with body image or appreciating herself. Like, literally, she's 6 and she'll come out. She got this makeup from her aunt for her birthday. Well, and it's like
the big pack. It's like the princess. Yeah. I saw
it's
that.
The legitimate Disney makeup. This girl is so good at it too. She has it on and she'll wake up. Like, it's been COVID-19 for like 3 weeks, and my baby is dressed every day, every morning, head to toe. And she will have on like heel shoes, like she only has one pair of sparkly heel shoes. She wears them every morning. She'll have accessories and earrings. Y'all, I mean, for real, it's crazy. So really and truly, my child, the only thing that she said that I've had to talk her through, which is very concerning to me that she's 6 and thinks this. She likes the way she looks. However, she questions why she's so dark and why her brother isn't. So she'll say, you and mommy are white, me and daddy are dark. And then she'll say that she wants her hair to be straight. She always wants me to straighten her hair because she wants to have straight hair. And that's been hard because, I mean, my daughter's hair is gorgeous, curly, and she's beautiful. And she's really not that much darker than her brother. She's not, but she is a little darker. And that's hard to verbalize to a 6-year-old. Like, no, you're gorgeous. What are you talking about? We're all the same. And so we had to start going with like ice cream flavors. I was like, mommy's more of like a caramel. You're more of like a pecan cluster. You know, we have to like we're trying to like explain how it's okay to be different shades of brown or whatever. And that I told her, I'll straighten your hair some, but your hair's beautiful curly. And so she knows I curl my hair. So what's helped with that is a lot of people call her my mini-me. And so we'll take a lot of pictures with my hair curly or my hair straight or our hair in buns, so she can see how similar we are and how it doesn't really matter. Like, change up your hair, it doesn't matter. You're still who you are. Mm-hmm. So we talk a lot about, I reaffirm to her all the time, or confirm to her, you know, how precious she is and how beautiful she is. And I know we shouldn't be superficial, but I think every girl likes to hear it.
Yeah.
You know, we still want to hear, you look pretty, or, man, you look nice today. You know, it's so nice someone says that. You're like, oh, thank you. I did get a new sweater, you know, and you get excited. So I do still try to compliment her, especially with her hair curly, because I need her to know, like, embrace that. That's who you are. Your hair's beautiful. So that's one thing we've had to really tackle. I think it'll just get harder as she gets older. So we'll hit that as it comes. But I think advice for parents is every child's different. So whether it's them being overweight or them, you know, having short legs or short hair or a nose or whatever it might be that's physically bothering them, you have to just work through it. Like my son, he's precious as can be, like cute as, I mean, all the little girls write him the love notes. But the thing that he's worried about, which is crazy, is why do I have to work so hard with like basketball? Why can't the shot just go in? My friends, the shots will just go in. Now, my son's a good basketball player, but my husband is, he did very well. He played professionally overseas. And so I think my son's very hard on himself and wants to be good right away. And that's that's a different tackle, but it's still a self-esteem issue that we're having to address. And once again, it's that comparison. And so we have to once again talk about, don't compare yourself. Just do what you do. Not everyone's going to have things easy. Some people have to work harder. Some people don't. And so we have these conversations. We're very open about that.
I think that's amazing. And I know that definitely having an interracial relationship and, having children who are biracial, that's a unique experience. It's hard. And I even remember growing up, I always looked at my mom, who's 5'4" and, white, and she always straightened her hair. I always wanted straight hair, and my hair is very curly, and I always wanted my hair straight because mommy's hair was straight, and that's the epitome of what I wanted to be. And my mom actually has naturally curly hair, but she straightens her hair because it was, that was always a thing for her, was being a little bit insecure with her curly hair. So I modeled that behavior. For her, straight hair made her feel more confident, so I took that on. So I just think it's amazing that you are showing your daughter the confidence that you have in yourself, because I think, like you said, it's always nice to hear, oh, you're beautiful, but it's really about the behaviors that you yourself are modeling that, children pick up. And so I think it's amazing that you're raising her to be so confident in who she is. And that's a tough one,
and humble. We're trying to give her some humility as well. Because while she might not like her hair curly someday, you straighten that hair and she's like, what? I'm gonna pray for her. So yes, both sides.
Both sides. But yeah, you're also a boy mom too. You brought up Jordan, and now is such an important time in history where women are really demanding respect and really challenging that boys will be boys mentality that has existed in our culture for so long. So how are you and your husband raising Jordan to be not part of the problem, but part of the solution?
Jordan is very much my husband in that he's just the nicest guy. He's very kind. He is, he just has such a gentle heart. He really does. He's a sweet boy. So really with Jordan, I have to actually get him to be a little tougher. And the reason why that's important to me is because I need him, being a biracial or Black African-American male in this society, you have to be ready for the world. And you can't cover that up and glaze it over when you have that kind of child, because you got to prepare him. And I never really have been experienced to any of that. My husband being African-American, I think was obviously the first time I've ever been experienced. We would get pulled over when he was driving, and those experiences were so bizarre. Like I don't even have time to explain them all, but dumbfounded how the profiling works. And my husband, being a very clean-cut, light-skinned, attractive man, still that profiling was so profound and happened. And so with Jordan, I have to teach him that though he's respectful, I need him to always be very aware and 2 steps ahead. I need him to always be prepared and to be ready for whatever's coming. And so that's one thing I always have to instill in him. Jordan, I don't think will ever, like the boys will be boys mentality. That's really not Jordan. And so we have to make sure that we keep him in an area where he has protective friends, supportive friends. But really my challenge with Jordan has been more so of just helping him be able to survive, if you will. I need to know that he can handle the world because the world is hard. It's very hard. I feel like it's a lot harder for children of color than not, unfortunately. And so that's more so what I've had to focus on with Jordan is, and we have these conversations. We're very open. He's been learning about, civil rights. And so we talk about it. He wanted to watch the Jackie Robinson movie, 42. And it was amazing. Such a good movie. And we had that dialogue. We had to talk about why he was so confused. Why would this happen? Why would white people be so mean to them? And so we had to talk about it. And then we had to talk about how it's important for him to appreciate his Black side, but also his white side. You have both. So you have to appreciate both of who you are. And it's hard for him because he's a very deep thinker. He wraps his mind around everything. And so we'd have to be very honest with him. Sometimes people make bad choices. Sometimes people are not fair. They're not kind, and we have to work through it, but we still need to be kind to them. We still need to be the bigger person. So teaching him that, and that's really more so what I've been working on with Jordan.
That's amazing. And I mean, you have two wonderful kids, and you guys are such a beautiful family, and those are the difficult conversations that unfortunately you do have to have with your children of color. It's because it's a reality of the world. And I think there are a lot of people out there maybe who are not exposed to people of color as much, or who are white, or who have never experienced any kind of prejudice in that way, who can go through most of their lives without even thinking about this. But it is a reality for so many of us, and it is important to talk about.
Absolutely. Sure. Especially when you're from somewhere like us, our county, and he goes to a school where, no, he never thinks about that. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really exist for him right now in his little bubble, his little niche. But once you get to where it does, I don't want him to be shell shocked.
Yeah.
Say, why did this happen? I need him to be like, oh, okay. Well, and then him be able to handle it, Same with Avery too. But Avery, once again, she's my diva. So people be like, well, there's no telling. She might be the one that I have to, I don't know.
Well, what's next for you moving forward? I know that you're an administrator now, but I mean, after COVID-19, obviously, and we're out of the quarantine, but what's next?
Yes. So for me, I pray I can finish my doctorate sometime soon. It's been such a process. It has been a journey for sure. And, just enjoying the work I do. I love being an administrator. I love the teachers I work with. They are just amazing. I'm always so impressed, and I'm always I'm speechless by how, like, COVID-19, how beautifully they've handled this, because this was very difficult. And all of a sudden we're like, bam, online learning, let's go. And they just embraced it and did such a great job. So I love what I do. I think down the line, I'd love to, maybe author some books or do some work like consulting or something, but I don't know. I really don't know. I'm such like a right now kind of person. My husband always gets mad that I don't write down my 5 and 10 year plans. He's like, you have to write them. I don't write them. He writes his. And so I probably need to, but right now I don't have time. I'm too busy. So my plan is to write down my plans. So maybe I'll make it happen then. So that's what I think. What's next?
You want to author a book about like your personal journey, or like books on education, or both?
I don't know. I've toyed around with different ideas of what I would want to do. I've thought about writing children's books because I love children's books, or even like chapter book series. I've also thought about writing books about interview, because I work with girls on interview and I love it. There's an art to it. There's so much to it that people don't realize. And I've thought about that, but I don't know. I don't think so much my story. I mean, maybe, but.
And I'd buy that book, and I think a lot of people out there would buy that book too.
I mean, they all know my story. I'm so open about it. It's like, why pay the money? I don't know.
Well, the interview book sounds good too. It's been really interesting to interview you.
Yeah.
You're just so good at it. But thank you so much for talking to me. I know you're busy, especially with everything with COVID and, the online learning and all of that. And it just means a lot that you took some time to speak with me today.
Absolutely. You're amazing.
You are amazing.
Ah.